Miami Hurricanes and Florida State Seminoles are clearly the best two teams in the ACC. I don't see who else challenges them in conference.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. He is Brian Smith from Locked On Seminoles. We are coming together even early. We're going to do a couple of these before the big game on October 4th, an epic crossover show here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app FanDuel today. We'll talk about matchups for Miami versus Florida State in Tallahassee, October 4th. Can anyone else in the ACC challenge Miami and FSU? Now, because of the fact that they play each other, they may not both get to the ACC championship game, although I think Jim Phillips would love that if you get a Miami-Florida State rematch come December. And we'll talk about the top storylines for both of these teams. And, you know, Brian, I think we can both say that the teams we cover have been pleasant surprises so far, but Florida State is definitely the bigger surprise coming off a 2-10 season. Yes. They smashed Alabama in the mouth week 1. You know, they've played a couple of easier games since, but they've done exactly what you're supposed to do against the likes of East Texas A&M and Kent State, and that is score a bunch of points and not give up very many points. So what do you look at with this early success that the Seminoles have had? What are the big storylines and what stands out most?
The two areas that Florida, they stunk across the board, but the two areas they were the worst last year were O-line and quarterback. They got 4 new transfer O-linemen, and they're playing well. You know what it's like because you've been around Mirabal. He's as good an O-line coach as there is in the country at the University of Miami. It's hard to take that many new guys and get it to work. They're annihilating teams. They ran the ball down Alabama's throat. They ran for 230 against Alabama. And I know Alabama's not as good as normal, but they're still massive up front, and those are still 4- and 5-star guys. Secondarily, I knew Tommy could play because I covered him in high school, covered him in 7-on-7, etc. But he's throwing the deep ball as well as any player in the country. You know what he's averaging on passes of 20 or more yards? 30.7.
Wow.
That's the best in the country.
Yeah.
He's just been he's throwing the deep ball like an NFL quarterback. And I'm not saying he's going to play quarter. I never thought he had a chance in hell of playing in the NFL because that doesn't fit his style. But all of a sudden, the ball is on the money. So they do a lot of things off RPO, and Gus is really good at catching you with your pants down. If you just really dive in, here comes the reverse.
Yes, the misdirection is what I look at. I'm like, they're so successful, and Gus has been for many years on that.
They've got Mekhi Danzey, and for those who don't know, he's got the 9th fastest 400-meter time in the world this year at wide receiver. And when he's ran 3 reverses, they've all scored. He's the fastest player probably in college football. But the point is still the same. They have a little piece everywhere there were all question marks, and they've all hit. It's so random. At 23, Florida State hit on the portal. 24, obviously not. 25, they hit it. It is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So O-line and quarterback in particular, but their portal, I think, should be mentioned. They just did a much better job.
Yeah, and for Miami, the big storyline, of course, has been the line of scrimmage on both sides. They have outrushed every opponent that they've played so far. They're so physical up front. You see the way Miami kind of employs their own version of the tush push. The line is always moving forward. They've had 2 powerful running backs running the show so far, Mark Fletcher Jr., and I think one of the best stories on the team has been Marty Brown, who they brought in from FCS. Now, the best FCS program, but still FCS player out of North Dakota State, who's had to play a lot because Jordan Lyle has been injured. And Marty Brown, I thought, was the best offensive player on the field against Florida this past weekend. And on the defensive line, it's been the Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor show. And I want to make sure to give a little love to Mesidor as well, because if he was on any other team putting up the numbers he's putting up, he'd be getting a lot more attention. He's just been eclipsed by his teammate Ruben Bain, who 4 games in, Bain has recorded 22 quarterback pressures already, 10 against Florida. The guy is in the backfield constantly wreaking havoc. And you can only double team him so much with Akeem Mesidor being on the other side, which has been key for Miami. And I think, Brian, probably to me, one of the biggest storylines for Miami so far has been, I think, and you talk about Florida State, I should say, really hitting with the roster and looking closer to 2023 than 2024. In the case of Miami, I think this roster shows just a really good combination of hitting on transfers and also homegrown talent really stepping up, because it's been both, which I think is the formula for success. You have to do both things. You have to recruit well out of high school, develop those players, but you also need to supplement through the portal because, Ruben Bain, that's a homegrown guy you recruited. Mark Fletcher, homegrown guy. Francis Malinoa at right tackle, homegrown guy you recruited, but then you also see of course, Carson Beck at quarterback, Marty Brown at running back, all the new defensive players Miami brought in. Jacoby Thomas, the safety they brought in from Tennessee, has had a superb start to the year. Keontae Scott, the nickel corner formerly of Auburn, has had a great start to the year. Muhammad Toure at linebacker. So I think, you talk about hitting on the evals and bringing in the right transfers. Miami did that, but they also have homegrown guys that are breaking out. And the result of it has just been a really balanced roster. And, a third into the season, there's a lot of football left to play, including a really difficult game coming up October 4th. But I couldn't be happier with Miami's roster right now. But I wanted to ask you something because, of course, I'm just sitting here. It's the bye week for Miami. So I kicked my feet up on the sofa. I'm just going to watch everybody else play on Friday and Saturday. Florida State has another game before they take on Miami. Road game at Virginia. I think Florida State's going to win the game, but I also think Virginia is better than people. It's not, last year's Virginia Cavaliers. Chandler Morris, their quarterback, has had a superb start to the season. How do you see that game on Friday night, FSU and Charlottesville? How do you see that playing out?
I had that come up, and people didn't really expect much out of Virginia because you're 100% right, Alex. They were awful last year, and they lost Malachi Fields to Notre Dame. They lost their quarterback, transferred to UNLV. But Morris comes in. He's a graduate student. He's a guy that played in a Texas system in high school. His dad's a coach, blah, blah, blah. He could spin it. If you don't get pressure on him, he'll pick you apart. He could play at Miami or Florida State or anybody. He's just finally figured it out. That quarterback's hard. But I was watching their game this past week, and not that Stanford's any good, but he's hitting small windows. He's throwing the ball over the top in stride. So my big question is, can Florida State get pressure on him and early? They've got two good running backs. They ran for over 1,000 yards already this year. They're a balanced offense. They are legit. Now, here's the other part, though. This is a quote from Brian Kelly, and I'm not a big fan of his, but this is still right. I talk about it all the time on the Portal podcast. You can scheme offense. You recruit defense. Virginia's not recruiting the defensive players that the Canes and the Noles are. They're just not. I think Florida State will wear them out. I think they'll beat them by double digits. It's only like a 7-point line, though. I thought that was too low. But yeah, Virginia will score. Yeah, I thought it should be 12 or 14. I really did. Florida State, if they put everybody out there, and I'll get into the injury report in the next segment, but if they put everybody out there, they can't play man against them, and they'll pick them apart if they play zone, and they'll be able to run the ball even better if they play zone. I think they will move the ball pretty much at will, so I think they'll pull away from them in the second half.
But when we come back, let's get into those possible injuries and also just the landscape in the ACC right now, because I think it's fair to say with Clemson looking so bad and Florida State looking so good and Miami looking really good, this conference has been turned upside down just a few weeks into the season. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this crossover episode, Locked on Canes and Locked on Seminoles. Folks, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Folks, we're also proudly brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Guys, this has made my life so much easier, getting all of these insights in one place. It's helped me save big. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser or half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Thank you so much for making this Locked On Seminoles, Locked On Canes crossover your first listen. And for your next listen, if you want to scout the enemy before next week's matchup, check out the other show. If you're a Locked On Seminoles everydayer, check out Locked On Canes. I always encourage Locked On Canes listeners to check out Brian on Locked On Seminoles. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts, and we're free on YouTube. All right, so Brian, when I try to talk about injuries in Miami, it's, I feel like I've led my audience astray for several weeks because I keep thinking JoJo Trader and Jordan Lyle are coming back. I said it before the South Florida game. I said it before the Gator game. We haven't seen these guys. Miami does have a bye week now. Mario Cristobal has said, they've been cleared. They're good to come back. So I'm thinking Miami is going to have, the full complement of JoJo Trader, who's going to be one of their better wide receivers when available, and Jordan Lyle, who actually started the season as Miami's starting running back before picking up an injury early in the Notre Dame game. So at this point, I offer no guarantees on when we're going to see these guys again, but I think it might be the Florida State game. How's FSU doing on the injury front heading into Virginia?
This is the wild card. By the way, not that Alex doesn't know this, but Cristobal is the worst coach in the country to deal with injuries. It is just awful. He hasn't been truthful one time since he's been in Coral Gables, and that's kind of what coaches do. So, and
by the way, happy birthday, Coach Cristobal. It's his birthday today. So
that's right. Florida State has been banged up since the Alabama game, which not shocking. Rodell Williams, I think he will be back for the Miami game. He was the starting running back. We'll see. They're loaded at running back, but still, you'd like to have a veteran. He was originally at Alabama. He's a good pass protector, all those things. Hopefully he's back. But Wayne McCoy practiced this week. They're expecting him to play against Virginia. It's kind of like the deal is with JoJo. I was hearing the saying, JoJo's going to play. JoJo's going to – like, where the hell is JoJo? Why is he not on the field? I'm with you. I have zero interest in what Mario has to say at his press conferences. Zero when it comes to injury front. So if JoJo's out there, he's healthy. That's how I'm going to look at that.
Yeah.
But they've been a little more honest at Florida State, but maybe McCoy's ready. Maybe he's not. They're going to practice him this week. They didn't guarantee he would play. And it's a Friday game, so we'll see. But McCoy's like the backup slot. That's important. The more important one is Squirrel White. He was banged up in the second game. He had some kind of hand injury. Like he landed funky when he dove for the ball or something like that. I don't know. And he's not the biggest guy. And he's not got the greatest track record when he played at the University of Tennessee. He got nicked up quite a bit. That's really important. He can really run. He's the guy that caught that first bomb against Alabama. He just ran by their secondary. That's a good player. Yeah. They don't have him against Miami. That hurts. So does he play against UVA? He's supposed to be practicing this week. But again, will he play? It's a tough decision for a coach because if you play him and he gets banged up against Virginia, people are ticked. But the kid's going to want to play. So, and then on the defensive side, they got a backup nose guard that's going to be back this week, allegedly 330-pounder. There are different players like that all coming in and out of the lineup that they need. They're not as deep as Miami. So their injury report is very, very important. It's more about who they play and how they look Friday. Because, again, I will be shocked if they lose to Virginia. Are these guys playing at full speed? And you can tell. Kids always say, I'm ready to play. Then you watch them like, that kid's not healthy. The eye test will tell us 4 or 5 guys need to really be in the lineup and doing something. that haven't. Landon Thomas, the tight end, was expected to start over this year. He just got back in the lineup. Is he ready? Randy Pittman, the other tight end, hasn't played the last game or so. Is he ready? They've been really banged up. So a lot of names, if they're not 100% against the Canes, that's a problem.
So right now, the Atlantic Coast Conference has, 2 teams in the top 10. It's Miami and Florida State. 3 teams in the top 25. Georgia Tech is also in there. But and here's the thing, Brian, you and I, we talked a little bit last week about Georgia Tech, who has, they already beat Clemson, and the rest of their ACC schedule is super easy. Now, although Clemson may not be the toughest ACC game on their schedule now that we realize how far Clemson is falling, but Georgia Tech has the easiest path to the ACC championship game if they take care of business. But I strongly feel Miami and FSU are the top 2 teams in the conference, but that game that we play against each other in a week and a half is going to loom large because somebody's got to take an ACC loss. You look at some of the other teams, obviously Clemson's basically out of it already at 0-2 in conference. I have no idea what Louisville is yet, because the toughest game they played so far was against James Madison at home, and they didn't look that good. They play Pittsburgh this weekend, so we'll find out more. SMU they haven't played a conference game yet, but they've looked really pedestrian out of conference so far. So, I mean, what are your, and I'll say one thing about Georgia Tech, all right? Not to take anything away from them, but, the more I watch Clemson, the less great I feel about Georgia Tech's 3-point home win against Clemson. It kind of reminds me of when Georgia Tech beat Florida State week 1 last year, week 0. I thought, hey, maybe Georgia Tech's the best team in the ACC. That we saw Florida State the rest of the way, and it took something away from that win. So, again, Georgia Tech's got an easy road, but I could see them slipping up somewhere.
2 points on Tech. You took the first one from me. I just want to reiterate it. They always play everybody tough that's supposed to be the better team. Like, they've got a chip on their shoulder, but that doesn't mean that team, just because of who's on the helmet sticker, is good that year. Florida State last year is the greatest example of all time. They were awful. But Georgia Tech plays hard against some of these teams, but they also play down to their competition. That is your point, and I 100% agree. The second part, and I love him, great player, but if any of you out there are Game of Thrones fans, I'm just going to use a reference. At the end of season 7, they were talking about, could you lie once in a while? Well, in this case, could Haynes King slide once in a while? He can't get hurt. That guy throws himself into the blender every chance he gets.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that all the time. Now, 4th and 1, all right. But he does it on 3rd down and 12, and he's not close to freaking sticks. If he doesn't play, they're not the same team. There's something about his mojo that goes beyond the stats. If he doesn't play every game, they're going to slip up somewhere. But if he does stay healthy, which he's never done in his college career, by the way.
That's right.
They could run the table in the ACC. Now, for the record, Georgia's their last game. I'm taking the Dogs. But in the ACC, they don't play FSU. They don't play Miami. They got the easiest slate. I don't think they play Louisville either, if I remember right. So,
well, no, I don't think they do, because I think the toughest game that they have left is at NC State.
And look, State, Hollywood Smothers is an NFL running back.
Yes,
period.
sir.
He is legit. But, they got a sophomore quarterback that's been up and down. When he's on, he's on. But, he had 3 turnovers this past week, 4 turnovers. There's going to be some moments. And Georgia Tech's defense is solid. But other than that, what other team matches their talent and just has that grit that they have? I think their floor is 10-2, because, I don't think they'll beat Georgia. And I don't think they might lose one ACC game. It's possible that the loser of the Florida State-Miami game, even though we completely agree, they're both better than Georgia Tech. One of them might get hosed.
Yeah.
And not make it. It's just the way the conference works. And sometimes these funky things happen. They drew the inside straight, Georgia Tech, on the schedule. There is no doubt about it, because they played the same schedule that Miami did or Florida State did. Would they finish the same? Probably not.
Now, could you talk yourself into Syracuse being a contender? Now, they just lost Steve Angeli, though, for the season, but it was a really close quarterback competition. It's not like Angeli was the surefire starter. He and Ricky Collins competed until, midway through fall camp, I think, before Angeli got that job. But at the same time, I just don't know if Syracuse's defense is good enough to stay consistent through November. But their offense looks fantastic. And maybe there's not even that big of an offensive drop-off with Ricky Collins.
With Ricky being in the lineup now, he's going to get all the number one reps in practice.
Yeah.
We'll probably know this week because that offense is, screw you guys, we're going up top.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, they are the most aggressive offense in the country. It's air raid on steroids. Like, they want to throw it down the field every freaking play. If you play bump, they're going to give their guy a chance to make a 50-50 catch. They don't care if it's 4th and 1. They're going to throw it up top. They really do. Their O-line's gotten a little better, but Angeli's accuracy. I mean, he was accurate when he was the backup in Notre Dame. He played a little bit, but he was always the guy that was a check down Charlie. Whatever Syracuse did, they changed his mentality because that was the complaint from Notre Dame fans. Man, he was number one in the nation.
Yeah.
In pass, like, he was the guy, and that you got to give Syracuse credit. My concern's on the other side. They're not that deep on defense, and they had defensive linemen dropping like flies against Clemson. How many guys are healthy?
Well, how many of those were fake injuries, though, too?
Well, that's the other part. I saw that before we did
they
this
got
podcast.
fined.
I knew when the two guys went down, and that's the specific. I'm like,
Yeah. A little fishy.
Clemson was at the end of a drive. Defenses have to burn more energy. I'm like, that's fake. That's fake.
Yeah.
They don't care. They'll take these teams. I think are going to start taking the $25,000 fine because it's different between winning and losing in a game. I really do.
Yeah.
You got to find teams like $1 million, and that's just not going to happen. So anyway, Syracuse's depth would be my concern, and their schedule is not very friendly. So they're going to play at Miami in a few weeks, don't they? It's
November 8th, Syracuse plays at Miami.
So just over a month.
Yeah.
They'll score, but can they handle Maui Noah, Inez Cooper, those guys?
No.
It'll be 2nd down and 4 all day. It'll be a snooze fest, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if Miami threw the ball 18 times because they just don't have to. I don't think Syracuse can stop them up front.
Well, and I actually hope that come first week of December, whatever Saturday that is in Charlotte, I think Miami versus Florida State in a rematch would be so cool. And it would make so much money. Like, the ticket sales, the TV ratings would be through the roof. But first, these teams have to play each other on October 4th. Let's talk about the matchup that I think is going to decide this football game. You want to keep it locked right here. Got Brian Smith of Locked On Seminoles, Alex Donno of Locked On Canes on this epic crossover event. And folks, this crossover is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. We're also in full swing with college football, by the way, and new customers on FanDuel can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay. I can even jump in live and live bet on a game as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your Saturdays and Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes and Locked On Seminoles your first listen. Brian, there's obviously, you've got every play, you've got 11 individual battles happening on the field, but I think the matchup that is probably going to go the longest way to deciding this one is how is Miami's rushing defense, which has been really good so far, but hasn't gone up against, the type of attack Florida State brings to the table. How is Miami's rushing defense going to stand up to Tommy Castellanos and Florida State's rushing offense? Because to this point, Miami is giving up just 76 rushing yards per game. Florida State is number 1 in Power 4, number 2 in the country in rushing yards per game so far. So I think that matchup to me, and also Miami trying to keep Florida State's offense off the field as much as possible, is going to decide the outcome of this game.
I think you hit it on the head. Let's start with your first point. Florida State is the most annoying team to play for a defensive coordinator because they run more shifts and motions than any team in the country. It's a pain in the butt. They're going to use tempo. They've only used it a little bit so far this year. Against Miami, look, how every coach says, we play every team the same. That is complete BS. They're going to save stuff for Miami, and Miami's going to save stuff for Florida State. I guarantee you're going to see more tempo, you're going to see new formations, and you're going to see new shifts. Lock. Now, Gus has been a coordinator or a head coach at high school, college, whatever, for 20 plus years. He's got some stuff in his bag. They're going to hit on a few of those. My question is, how well does Florida State, this is the most generic play in college football, they run inside zone as much or more than any team in the country. It's the basis of their offense. So while I completely agree, Messidor is great, he doesn't get enough credit, first off. If you're a Miami fan, you should be absolutely applauding Bain. Don't forget about the other guy. He's awesome too. Yeah. But it's the inside guys play just straight up on inside zone and gap plays on first down. Mm-hmm. If Florida State is in 2nd and 5, that's when the tempo comes. That's when reverses come. That's when screens come. That's when formations that you can scan the internet forever. They're going to have formations. They're going to catch you with your pants down at some point. That's Gus does. But it still starts with inside zone. They have to be able to slow them down there. That's just a mano a mano. The other part is you're still going to also be 3rd and long. I give Miami a major edge until otherwise proven with Bain and Messidor at tackle because, and I'm not trying to pick on them, Alabama was way worse at defensive end and edge than I thought. I don't trust that defensive coaching stick because they got a gazillion guys that can play. They just weren't that good. They just weren't. There's no way Bain and Messidor aren't going to have some success, but can they consistently make Tommy nervous? As I mentioned earlier in the show, he throws it down the field well. He's a good deep ball thrower, and Florida State's really fast. If he gets a chance, he's going to beat you at some point.
Yeah.
The other part is tackling Tommy one-on-one. I mean, for those who don't know, he was recruited as a running back or a corner by Clemson, Florida State, et cetera, out of high school. He's a freak athlete. Just tackling him one-on-one in space. Good luck. Not many people do well with that, but that could be the difference in the game too. They haven't asked him to run much, but you know the Canes are also going to get some pressure. Heatherman's a good coordinator. They're going to save some blitz packages that FSU hasn't seen.
That's right.
It's going to come down more to players. And I think Florida State's O-line's pretty good, but I like Miami's defensive front better. So Tommy, at some point, is going to have to make somebody miss and go get you 30. I wouldn't want to tackle him one-on-one. And I doubt Miami's players are going to admit this. They probably don't like it much either, but that's the task. Whoever wins those matchups will probably win the game. And again, I like Miami. Right now, the defensive end's better than Florida State's tackles. That's why I give Miami an edge in this game. But that's really the key to it. And that's the way it should be in Miami, Florida State, right? Yeah. Like they've always had, both these teams have had great defenses, and Florida State's got some really good D linemen too. Big Daryl Jackson.
Yeah, we know him well down here. Yeah.
That's right. He went home to be close to his mom.
Yeah.
But that game should come down to trenches. I think that'll be a lot of fun to watch.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, in the meantime, Miami fans will be watching Florida State on Friday night. Florida State fans, of course, will be as well to get an advanced look at the opponent. And I do like, for everything you talked about Florida State's offense, from the Miami point of view, I like the fact Miami's got a bye week so they can, Corey Heatherman especially, can spend that extra time kind of thinking up what Gus Malzahn may cook up for that following Saturday.
Heatherman probably looked at the schedule before the season, was like, hey, this is a good deal. I mean, I would if I was him. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everyone for making Locked On Canes and Locked On Seminoles your first listen. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And for Brian Smith, I am Alex Donno. We'll talk to everyone. We'll do this again next week where we're going to give our score predictions. Like I can't give a score prediction until I see what happens Florida State and Virginia on Friday. So we'll save that one for next week. We'll talk to you then on another episode right here on the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.